and tea and coffee this morning. My name is Elizabeth Sklar. I'm a professor in Agri-Robotics and the research director here at LIAC. And I'm delighted to be able to introduce Greg Chilniak, who is newly promoted professor. He's been with us a long time and done some amazing work, and he's leading this project called Agri-OpenCore, which I'm going to tell you about. And one of the partners on the project, Niall Healy, who will also talk about their part of the work in Zyham. So I'm not going to go on any longer. The only thing I'll mention is that this is the last in our series of this winter's breakfast briefings. So stay tuned for two things. One is in the sort of flip side of the year, while things are growing in the field, we have a seminar series that will kick off after Easter. So we can, we'll announce this also to the same mailing list. It's more of an academic series, so people still might be interested in coming, so we'll send you the details of that. And then the breakfast briefings for next year, we will kick off again in the November timeframe, so stay tuned. And without further delay, Greg, thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Yeah, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, it's a pleasure. So so I'm professor in robotics, and you know I've been doing robotics for 20 years or so. So that's the topic for today. But we will see robotics actually applied to agriculture. And my goal is to tell you the news about this very exciting project that we run together with the industry, which is called Agri-OpenCore. So I think Agri is quite intuitive term, but I'll try to explain what this open core, what's the meaning of that. So my goal for today is to really share with you the news about this project. What we believe it's a help to, it's a project that will help development of new technology, robotics technology that will be deployed in agriculture. I'm sure that everyone is aware about the labor crisis or labor shortages in the farming businesses. I thought to show some numbers to actually almost reinforce that what we hear in news and what some of you might have are experiencing. If you look at relative numbers, this is the graph on the left side that shows the relative numbers of the UK workforce, and this is the relative percentage of people employed in agriculture compared to the entire UK sector. So you can see, that's from 2016 to 21, and you can see, there are some key events in British history, EU referendum, COVID, Brexit, and you can see that despite of these sort of local variations, the trend is downwards. Yeah, so 0.22% of the entire agricultural workforce is accounted for the entire UK workforce. And that's dropping down to now to maybe even less, 0.12. So these are relative numbers. And on the right side, I've got the recent figure from the FSA on the actual numbers, total numbers in England. And if these different colors actually show you the total absolute numbers of workers in different roles in agriculture. And you can see that none of these bars, none of these trends goes upwards. It's pretty steady, but with a slight decline. So actually, if you look at the total numbers, it's the decline of -3%, and it's an issue, and we all are well aware of that. And I think at the peak of this situation, our colleague Simon Pearson, the director of LIAC, together with former Secretary of State George Eustice, wrote this white paper, an independent report about the state of automation in horticulture. So they focus on horticulture mainly, but in that independent report, the goal of that independent report was to highlight really the challenge to the government and DEFRA, and really identify a set of recommendations. And it was a combination of recommendations which are, around the legal aspects, about engagement, but the third important recommendation was to actually invest heavily in automation and robotics technology, because that is seen as a potential solution to alleviate this labor crisis. And the reason that was recommended was not just incidental. I think the report basically recognizes that UK is it's not in a bad space when it comes to technology. There is actually quite a lot of robotic startups that target agricultural applications. So what we can see here is one word of one of these startups. It's called Dogtooth, and they manufacture strawberry harvesters. So that's a fleet of 20 robots deployed in a glass house, and that's in Carrington, in Lincolnshire. It's a Dyson's farm, very modern production center. You can see these robots performing robotic picking of strawberries. And we can see also people with new jobs. These are new jobs created. These are robot operators. These are not technology educated people. They are local workers who are actually, they've got now new jobs because of that. So so Dogtooth is a very nice example of that, of what is available in terms of technology or possible. And there are a few, let me see if I can, okay. But it's not the only company, and there are other startups that target different crops, different environments. So, for example, polytunnels, glass houses, open fields, and we've got a few examples here. Our speaker from Xylem, Niall, is part of that portfolio of UK startups. And I think this technology is here. Yeah. But the good question is, why is it not available for sale? Why we don't have services? Why this is still there? And this is a classic problem of which is called the valley of death. For many of these startups, because they are fairly small, they rely on investors in the financing. It's very challenging to go from that point of technology development to the point when they start to earn money in businesses. And many of these startups actually, they die in the valley of death. And that report that I mentioned before suggested a change in philosophy in terms of how we approach development of this technology, is that there has to be money to support these companies, and also these companies, they have to come together, because developing robotics technology is not for teams of 10, 20, or even 50 people. You really need significant resources to build the robots, but also to integrate them into farms, and also, and there are many challenges. So I think technology is here, but there are lots of challenges to make it really be deployed as a sort of a business solution, and that's where our project comes in, Agri-OpenCore. So the idea behind this project is so ourselves, University of Lincoln, we got in touch with these several of these startups, and we got together, and we propose a first dedicated ecosystem that helps develop this robotic technology. And ecosystem, what it means is first software components that enable certain functionality like autonomy, safety, perception for finding fruit and so on, but also aspects around standards, regulatory standards, technical standards, how the different components of the robotic system exchange information, issues around safety. So all these autonomous systems, the safety is very important, especially if these are systems designed to collaborate with humans. And the project aims to really leave these, you could say, the building blocks. It's like Lego bricks, so that these companies that are in the consortium, but also everyone else outside of the consortium, can benefit from that. So I mentioned already, what are the outcomes. That's a project funded by DEFRA and Innovate UK. The partners involve growers, so APS produce, which are soft fruit in tomato growing space. That's the project lead. We've got startups, so Dogtooth, Xylem, Muddy Machines, Wutsano, so they target different use cases. So these building blocks will be assembled into use cases in strawberry harvesting, tomato and asparagus as well. And University of Lincoln is there as a, you could say, technical coordinator of these efforts. We are responsible for standards, making sure that these are components that can be, do not only work for a single entity, but they are general and applicable to other systems. And that's a 3-year project which started last summer, and it's around £5 million altogether. So it's quite significant and large project. The inspiration for this project doesn't come from nowhere, so we are not reinventing the wheel, propose yet another framework from scratch. We are inspired by the experience in the robotics community, general robotics community, that came up with this very clever and really revolutionary idea which is called robot operating system. So if you speak to people who are doing robotics for different type of applications, different type of robotics, they will tell you that ROS has changed and transformed the way how the technology is being developed. So the idea is it's again, set of building blocks that simplify, standardize the way you build robots. And then it's open source, which means that this is not done by a single company that has 100, 200 employees, but it's done by the community of tens of hundreds of thousands of people involved. Companies are also involved, very serious players, and I'll show you, if that sounds open source, sometimes might have this sort of impression that this is not it's a hobby. It's a hobby project. I'll show in a moment that this is a very serious business. We've got Googles, Facebooks, we've got automotive companies with autonomous cars, all the Volkswagens, and industrial robotics companies. Everyone is involved in that. They are very serious about it, and that really helps to develop these very complex systems. So it's a big community. It's a reusability. These are components that are tested in many systems, so you've got some assurances that it works, and it's been applied in many different applications. So that's a sort of a short video demonstrating how ROS is being used in different types of big companies, like in the distribution set that deploy robotics in distribution centers, in academia, startups, industrial robotics, so many different uses. So idea behind the Agri-OpenCore is not to start from scratch, but build on top of ROS, but make it agriculture specific and specific for selective harvest. Yes, so this is the key idea. So our role is to adapt ROS components, create also new functionalities. So for example, our pedigree at Lincoln is robot autonomy, and we've designed software systems that enable these agriculture robots and easy navigation in different types of environments. And this is the technology that we want to share with other companies, make it really accessible so that the companies know what hardware to buy, how to connect it together. So with the use maybe of a single engineer, in a month you can get your platform navigating safely and autonomously in the environment. So new functionality, autonomy is one, safety is the other one, super important, as I mentioned, because of these robots are likely to work with people, but also tools for helping the companies on technical side. So tools like digital twins, so simulation environments that help you to have access to your entire complex system without actually going directly to the field. It's a digital representation of that environment. I've got an example here on the next, maybe not this one here. So we can see digital twins of environments, strawberry polytunnels on the left side and the tomato growing side, where you can see the virtual robots being deployed, and they've got simulated sensors and so on. So this environment helps the people who develop software to early test, to check that everything is fine, and this is a tool that helps before early release of the system. But technicalities are only one aspect of this project. Second important thing is legislation, and especially around the safety. As I mentioned, autonomy and automation brings the problem of safety with it. So if you there is some already work ongoing when it comes to legislation. British Standards Institute, BSI, I hope I deciphered the acronym in the right way, already prepared a document which is called Autonomous Mobile Machinery in Agriculture and Horticulture. And that's a document that specifies, gives the framework about who is responsible for running autonomous systems, what are the challenges, what the owners and technology developers should pay attention to. But it's a very generic document that doesn't have much detail. And especially the important thing is there isn't much evidence about what works, what doesn't, because we are still early in deploying the robotic system. So, we've seen 20 in the Dyson's farm. That's the state of the art. We don't have hundreds of these robots working and evidence. So one of the goals of this project is also to provide the evidence that shows how safe these robots are, what are the critical issues for safety. And so the work that is ongoing in this project is to contextualize and focus on the specific use cases. What is important for selective harvesting robots, and give some assurances, some guidance, and some evidence for that then can be used by technology developers, but also more importantly for people like from the insurance sector. They really need this information to be able to value how the insurance and so on. So this is super important. And the third dimension of this project, which is also not purely focused on technical developments, is knowledge exchange. And knowledge exchange, which is happening on multiple layers. So that includes the companies themselves. You can think about them as potential competitors because they fight for the same market. But actually, then this project gives them a forum to discuss technical challenges, to discuss bits that are maybe not, IP protected. So that's what happens there. It's also an opportunity for them to get engaged with entities like ourselves, to learn about, what's the state of the art in robotics and so on. I mentioned already safety legislation. It's a lot about standards, insights and dissemination. So, for example, event like this, it's part of dissemination, but most importantly is engagement with key stakeholders. And one of these engagements that is taking place right now is we are looking at the attitudes towards the agri-robots amongst the UK community and farming community mainly, because we still have very limited understanding of what is the general level of acceptance. How comfortable would you be working with the robots, what that would mean to your business, and so on. And so we've got this study, and then later on, I would like to invite our participants to maybe take part in this study. We've got an online version, and we've got also a paper version, so we can assist with that. We've got already some responses, which is around 90, which are ready. Colleague who prepared these responses, Jack, he didn't want to actually present these partial results because that potentially could affect your responses to this survey. But we would really appreciate if we could get some participation. And that's really a way, an opportunity for engaging and with the, and it's an opportunity for people who participate to shape the future of robotic technology development and policy. Good. So I think the main key here is about robot acceptance. So survey would ask about questions. For example, how would you personally feel about having a robot assisting you with the task? And this survey does not require any experience with robots. It's about almost attitudes and what is the general feeling about this technology. And here is some technicalities. There is a QR code to the website, and I can maybe put up this slide towards the end of the event, which has got some instructions, how to engage with that. And I think this is the last slide. I'd like to just summarize. So Agri-OpenCore is, again, it's an ecosystem to accelerate development of robotics technology. It brings lots of benefits or potential benefits to UK farms. So it removes or mitigates some of the risks that are related to the labor shortages. It also supports the growing startup and robotics companies in the UK. UK is actually quite in a privileged position, like countries who are also very strong in agri-food technology, like Netherlands, for example. They don't have too many startups. Everything is consolidated in bigger hands. So I think it's an asset. It's a UK asset that we have to support. And it's again, it's a business opportunity. It's an opportunity to shape advances in future agriculture. And it's a project that it's not only meant to last 3 years, a limited period of time. It's a project about legacy. So it's what will come out of this project and what will stay. And what will be developed in this project, we plan to actually turn into a foundation and keep developing beyond just these 3 years. So we hope that there will be enough community who will engage with this project. So this would be other companies, other academic institutions, which will keep that growing and in the spirit of this robotic operating system I mentioned already. So I think that's Agri-OpenCore in a nutshell. Thank you very much. And now I'll invite Niall to present it about the Xylem.
Morning, everyone. If you don't mind, I'll probably sit for most of this presentation. I can't remember the last time I stood for 15 minutes. But first of all, thank you all for being here. My name is Niall. I work at a company called Xylem that Greg has already mentioned. It's fantastic to be at Lincoln. And yeah, so a bit of background on us. We are a precision agri-robotics company founded in 2016. What we're currently focusing on is the harvesting and packing of vine tomatoes. We've done some initial R&D in grapes, which has been very, very promising. And what I want to go over is the step change that recent developments in AI, particularly in assessing the quality of delicate fruits, has allowed us to see a kind of really, really strong improvement in the efficacy of our robots and allowed us to improve upon the levels of kind of human assessed quality. So how things work currently is there is normally someone full-time in any delicate produce environment who will turn over pack punnets and look at them manually. And if they spot anything wrong, they'll then remove that from the value chain. But over 8 hours, you're going to miss a few. So this is our first product, which is currently in commercial deployment, and it end-to-end packs delicate fruit. So we unload a 10-kilo tray of on-the-vine tomatoes, and they get put in the beginning of this machine, and then they come out in a flow wrap punnet ready for sale. This is currently processing 50,000 punnets per month, and poor quality tomatoes, split tomatoes, moldy tomatoes, tomatoes of the wrong size, tomatoes which have the wrong amount of tomatoes on the vine, they're removed at a 99.5% accuracy, which is, we believe, and have pretty strong evidence to suggest, is better than humans. And this has really been unlocked over the past year with developments in AI, particularly predictive and generative AI. Secondly, we have a video, and this is our harvesting robot. Hopefully this will play as I'm explaining what it's up to. Is this harvests delicate on-the-vine fruits with precision robotics. The accuracy rate is in excess of 99%. And the technology here allows efficiency gains to lower what's about 15% wastage in the industry across delicate fruits. The ways in which we can do this is the effector and the camera on this arm can assess tomatoes are being harvested at the right time at a very, very consistent level. The problem with manual harvesting isn't necessarily that at peak levels people are inaccurate, but as that accuracy level drops as it goes through, sometimes an 8, 9, 10-hour shift. It also is able to check for things that people can't see or feel. So we have sensors which can assess chemicals which come with tomatoes, which may be early indicators of disease, maybe early indicators of potential mold or splits in the future. And this enables us to remove those from the value chain as early as possible, and ensuring that even if there is wastage at the beginning, that wastage doesn't go through to a kind of manual QA check at the end, using all the energy and all of the labor to process those into a packed punnet. And up until probably middle of last year, our mission was really hamstrung by quite intractable technical challenges. That assessing delicate fruit quality wasn't at high enough accuracy level. So there had to be a human in the loop, and this made the products, quite frankly, commercially unfeasible. This needs very, very high levels of accuracy due to the nature of the commercial challenge. Damage is very, very expensive. A single tomato plant is worth about £40. The upside you get for picking a tomato truss is about a penny. So any mistake you have is massively, massively outweighs any success. So you need 99% accuracy for human parity. And if you have to have human presence at any point, earlier models of our products, if the vision system saw something that it can deal with, it would escalate to a human operator who'd be able to make a decision, but that broke the economics very, very quickly. And ultimately, this has been solved to a very, very large extent by AI. We now have a very good multifaceted idea of tomato quality, and we think other delicate fruit quality from imaging and other outputs such as weights, such as kind of chemical readings of tomatoes that, as mentioned earlier, are incredibly accurate. And this incrementally improves due to the nature of AI. So the packing robot that I showed you earlier, that processes 100,000 plus images of tomatoes per month, and we can build those into our databases to ensure that the 99.5% accuracy it has at the moment will incrementally improve to 99.6, 99.7. Previous products we built, they were static. And we got very, very good accuracy levels, but they weren't quite over the level we needed, and they didn't really improve. So we had to go back to the drawing board every time we implemented. And ultimately, what this has allowed is that we've removed people to a very, very great extent. There will always be a role for people. Greg mentioned the robotics operators earlier, but as our packing machine with good quality crop, the robotics operator at the moment has to load tomatoes into it and unload tomatoes off. And there is already quite good products out there that allows that to be automated also. So in terms of what we're looking at for the rest of this year and beyond is to commercialize the robots that we have, expand to new sites, and ensure that we are really developing products with data sets from a variety of machines. Greg mentioned the great work that Dogtooth are doing with 20 robots in the field. And although that's a monumental achievement, I personally have a lot of empathy of how difficult that is. It doesn't really give you verifiable data sets. And particularly when we speak to investors, we speak to governments, we speak to large scale soft fruit producers, 20 robots is not something that is going to change their lives, change the bottom line, and also affect much needed change in the UK agricultural sector. We believe this is very applicable to other fruit and veg, particularly grapes, where we've started initial R&D. There's already great work being done in strawberries, probably more tangential is asparagus work that Money Machines are doing, but this is not a single country or produce related problem. It's why the opportunity is so huge. It's why the work we're doing is so important. It's why that we're all here today and have this Agri-OpenCore project, which is a very, very significant piece of work. And one of the things I wanted to touch upon, and it's the broader theme of today, is that we're working with the University of Lincoln on the broader infrastructure. And that is vitally important, not only to enable robotics across agriculture. I was speaking to someone earlier that one of the previous breakfast briefings was about the role of AI in wheat. They will be using ROS. They will need something which is agricultural specific on a technical basis. They'll need something which is agricultural specific on a health and safety basis. And they'll also need something that is agricultural specific on a basis that enables the great work that company's doing to gain investment, gain recognition, and reach a scale where it is something that is making a difference in everyone's lives. So that is a short overview of what we're doing and how kind of the broader developments in AI, which I'm sure you've all heard about, has enabled us to create something which is not only not like a cobot, is an independent robotic system that doesn't rely on people, but also something which is at the beginning of commercial viability. I don't know how we're handling questions today, but I'm happy to address any that you have at the best extent that I can. Hello. Someone's brave enough to answer questions.
I'm intrigued. It seems to me wonderful though this is, it all heads in one direction. For these machines to work effectively, you'll want a considerable uniformity of your crop.
Potentially. I don't think that one of the operating principles that we have is that we cannot have products that are reliant on the environment changing. We will not get tomato producers to wholesale change the way in which they grow tomatoes. And also, this is something which, by the nature of on-the-vine tomatoes, they don't grow in a uniform manner. In the technical difficulties slide, you see these tomatoes here. They've grown in a manner in which they've intermeshed themselves. And that is, as far as we're aware, practically impossible to remove. These are, by nature, very, very chaotic organic systems. So you will not need uniformity of crop. You will need an effective, non-human reliant decision-making body that can assess a novel situation, and every situation will be novel. They will have similarities, and work out with a 99.8 plus. 99.8 might work, 99.9 definitely will. It's one of the problems that we're having kind of project-wide, the high levels of accuracy needed and the high database sizes needed to make an intelligent decision whether to harvest. So this is the distinction I've made between robots and machines. With machines, you would need a uniformity of crop because they will do a set pre-planned set of actions, and they might have 4 things they might do. With the robots, they'll have to have a novel path per truss harvested, and it'll have a separate decision based on a novel situation. So with AI, we are seeing accuracy on the tomato glass houses that exist. We make no changes. So I don't think we need uniformity of crop. It may be beneficial for us to change how the crop is grown, and we're exploring that possibility with APS because the way in which a tomato glasshouse looks now is optimized for manual harvesting, which we could optimize for robotic harvesting, but a firm belief we have internally at Zyhelm is that it has to work with current glasshouses. We can't have a robotic system we say, this works great if you build a new glasshouse, which can be up to an 8-figure expense. So yeah, we're not seeing systems which only work on kind of crop uniformity, and Greg can probably speak with greater confidence than I about how this works with dogtooth, but I think dogtooth would tell you exactly the same, that they can't have strawberry plant uniformity. Uniform strawberry plants don't exist.
So if I can put your production into one variety, one huge company that can afford the technology, and a monopoly supplier, if you like, it won't carry on the process which we've seen in the last 50 years of the destruction of smaller businesses.
Potentially. So you do have a problem with smaller businesses being able to afford robotic systems. That you've seen big consolidation, as you said previously, of smaller businesses. But the problem isn't, I don't think this is an imposition. And the reason why it's receiving such government support is that we are effectively at market failure in UK soft produce. About 10 to 15% of UK delicate fruit, strawberries, tomatoes, currently rots on the vine, rots in production due to the lack of labour to harvest it. This isn't a system which is going to create monopoly power. There's many, many people building tomato robots. It's going to ensure that we are able, with the current constraints we have, to produce fresh fruit in the UK as it exists. We've seen for the first time in decades, large-scale crop shortages, seeing empty shelves in the supermarkets just this time last year, and they are set to continue without something significantly changing. And despite working with a robotics company, I'm not going to sit here and tell you this is a panacea. I'm not going to tell you this is the only solution. This is going to fix everything, but I fail to see a kind of sustainable solution that doesn't involve implementing some kind of automation. And we're seeing very, very positive results from this and very, very good feedback from a variety of producer sizes, albeit not the smallest producers. I don't think they have the scale or the bandwidth or capacity to work with robotics companies. But our current, I suppose, anchor client is not a particularly large multi-site business. They have a single site in Merseyside, and they are seeing it as a way to remain competitive versus 400 million tomato conglomerates based out of Morocco and Spain, or very, very large companies in the Netherlands that Greg has mentioned.
I would maybe add to that actually this idea behind Agri-OpenCore is actually part of it is democratizing the technology development. And I think that's in some sense, you prevent one single entity to first have IP and ownership of the technology, which means that happens on the technology side. And then there is also a push to decrease the price of these units so that the technology becomes more, scalable, so you can deploy it in smaller environments and in smaller farms, and also scale it up to John Deere's. But I think it is a good comment, and I think that the conversation needs to be happening all the time. I think with robotics technology in general, there is this fear that this would be taken by Google's, Amazon's, and it would be monopolized. But I think it's a societal issue to be discussed.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, seems to me there's a huge difference between what you're doing, technology, and landowners, farmers, if you will.
Yes.
And it's a matter of having perhaps a British standard overall for the technology side, but then go-betweens, if you will, dragons, as in Dragon's Den, to work with you and landowners to explain how it works properly and to move inventions perhaps to actually working on the land. And that, I think, is where, such as this, the University of Lincoln can work with students to bring them to realise the differences so that they can get jobs, if you like, working in that type of field. And it's been sort of alluded to, but I wonder what Lincoln University is doing at the moment to try and push that forward for students.
Right. I think it's a good comment. I think education is super important. We've seen the creation of new jobs that did not exist before. It's robot operator and operator. It's for that entire class house, it was 2 or 3 of these jobs. But here at Lincoln, we've got our institute, is Institute for Agri-Technology. We run postgraduate programs, so for those students who finish the BSc, bachelor's, and they so it's postgraduate program in agri-food technology, agricultural science and technology. We've got programs in sustainability, BSc in robotics, so in development of robotics. And we use lots of the use cases and teaching material, which actually, these are illustrations from which contextualize use of technology to agriculture. It's true that we probably can do more in terms of engaging with landowners, farmers, and trying to do the deployment of that technology together with students. So that I'm not sure we've got a good model for that yet. Elizabeth, I can see that you could expand.
No, the only thing I'll mention is I'm a program lead for our new BSc in robotics, which just started in the autumn, so we have the first cohort, and there's 7 very motivated, excited students, and most of them are looking for a summer placement. So if anybody wants to have a student, in their facility in the summer, paid, unpaid, that's up to you. We can work that out. So please get in touch with me through Greg or Heather, or find me on the website, or see me after, and I'll give you a card. You have very keen students looking just to get some real experience in the field.
One other important thing is at Lincoln we got also Center for Doctoral Training. So it's a higher training PhD students. So this is highly specialized. But it's a CDP in agri-food robotics. So this is actually targeting that. I think what needs to probably happen that this education happens earlier, this engagement happens earlier. So BSc, maybe even early high schools.
Yeah, the biggest problem, I think, can be that they know everything about robotics, but actually transferring that to people like me, lay people, that suddenly realise, oh, this is going to work for me, is the big difficulty. In other words, they've got to speak both languages the technical and the norm language to everybody who wants to work with this but don't know how, you know.
Yeah, I think we are trying, maybe the answer is we are trying. We don't yet probably have an optimum solution for education. And in a sense, it's an evolving area because there is a new, I think issues are, this technology is evolving. Second one is, what are the good ways of educating about technologies in application to agriculture? You know, how much of agriculture you have to teach, how much of technology, and I think that's to strike the right balance is the key.
I've got a question, but first I thought I'd add a real life case study. So 5 years ago, I did the Agri-Food Masters here at Lincoln. Before then, I had no experience in the sector, and now I'm working in the sector and within the industry as well. So just an experience of that course. But my question, firstly, thank you. That was a really interesting talk. And you said you're at 99.5% accuracy, and that you want to increment up to 0.6 and 0.7. And that can sound like a really small thing, but I actually imagine it's quite a huge thing, and it's probably a lot of effort.
Yeah.
So my question is, how much effort actually is that? But also, how much value could that 0.1% add? I'd be interested to know.
Yes, and the percentage points seem very, very small, but even at a relatively small producer, I think their quote was that if we reduce their wastage by 1 percentage point, that is a £2.5 million improvement to their bottom line. So these are crucially important. It's one of the reasons why having very, very large commercial grade data sets is important, because if you have 1,000 images of tomatoes, and trust me, it's a massive effort to go and take 1,000 pictures of tomatoes, you've no idea whether 99.6 versus 99.7 is within the margin of error. So in terms of efforts, it is now kind of a self-sustaining system. So we are taking these images as part of normal commercial operation, and we can upload to those databases algorithmically. So it is more a question of time, and it's also a question of being in as wide variety environments as possible, which is our big weakness currently. With one machine, you tend to run purchase orders on single source crop. So, and that crop will be skewed towards the growing environment they have on site, which is very, very good. So it would be great. And one of the things we're looking to do, I think, within the next 6 months is to move to a second site. And that is where the real work is. The work is building the robot, getting it set up and operating it. The database curation looks after itself once you put that initial work in. Though the person who creates the database might resent me saying that. Not at all.
My name is Janice Owen. I'm from the Greater Lincolnshire Local Enterprise Partnership. My job is Policy and Programme Officer. And I send back information to the government as part of my role on the challenges presented to the economy, including agriculture and agri-food. We daughter of the youngest son, therefore we were never destined to be on the farm, and you have to find other jobs. As part of the local enterprise partnership, we run a really great careers hub. So my question, other than the challenges to be in the industry, is, my first primary question is, if I was a mother or a grandmother with children in school, what skills would you be suggesting they do to retain them on the land? Because in Lincolnshire, in particular, there is a drain of talent from the land, and they're lost to the county eventually. And I'm lost to my county. I'm really way down south. I come from what was Westmoreland in Cumbria. So, what skills and direction would you be telling children to do in school so that they can come onto these programs and be involved in automation in the land?
It's a good question.
Good.
I think we can see that this importance of technology is unavoidable. You know, in a sense, it becomes almost like a tool to retain people in the business. So you can see that the reaction of younger generation to robots doing practical stuff, you can see that it resonates with them. That they see, oh, actually agriculture might be cool, it's exciting, it's challenging, but it's exciting, and they don't see it as a something that is been for thousands of years, and I have to repeat exactly what my parents and grandparents did. So I think there is this aspect. So I think focus on software technology. This is a modern skill that hasn't been taught traditionally in schools. But you can see, I've got a daughter 10 years old. She goes to school in Lincoln, and they start to teach children basis of programming. This is a skill that we would think is completely unnecessary for survival, but actually, it teaches you lots of very useful ways of thinking, and also ways of interacting with technology. So phones, it's not just the robots, but phones, computers, all digital infrastructure. And for that, you need to understand the fundamentals of how this technology works. So I would say programming is a very important one. Engineering.
Yeah, the thing I was going to add was math. Because I think one of the key things about math is that as kids are going through school, they have to make choices about which things to take, as you said, at A level. As they make choices, that will narrow what they can do next. And if they stick with doing some math, it will mean that when they get to uni, they have the choice to do some of the things. And they don't realize that when you're 14 or so and deciding what to take, if you don't do any math, you're already shutting the door on being able to go into a lot of computer science or engineering without realizing that you made that choice inadvertently. So I know there are social pressures, especially for girls, not to do math, but I fight against that, and I think it just keeps the door open.
But I would say, in addition to technology, because these were very technical subjects, I think it's also for younger generation to understand how food is made, the whole process. I don't think this is being taught in schools. Again, the personal example, they had in school, they were taught how to prepare a sandwich. It was a 6-week endeavor where for 5 weeks they were designing, they were talking about how to prepare a sandwich, and they prepared the sandwich at the very end with the ready product. So I think I think being aware of how food is made, what are the processes, what are the challenges, I think is great. Maybe something on the ecology side as well, I don't know how you
Yeah, probably. That's the answer question for many of the people asking. For example, in one of master program, technology. Some of the academics from the NCF, they try to teach the students, because one of the questions students really ask, okay, I came here with the intention of learning something from an architect point of view, as well as a more likely machinery point of view. What skills do I need to learn during my 1-year period here, so that I may be able to easily find a job in the agri industry? So that is the knowledge and experience of what I learned. All these things I have to learn, have to tell me what skills I need to know. So they have immediately asked me all that exactly tell me what skill I need to know, so that I can find a job for 1 year. So that's the same question what you were asking. So when the children start learning from the high school, they come up with the basic sciences, not learning the basic sciences. That may not be necessarily in each and every component what they will be using in the future on. So thinking on what is, for example, parents know exactly what they are doing, what their business, what their children can probably should learn also, so that they can maintain the life as a parents, for example. It can be different, of course, they can go in a different direction as well. But if they know that then they put them in the direction to learn the basic. But according to the current system, we don't know all the sciences necessary for what we need in the future, because we don't know what we are going to do in the future. That is one thing. Example, Indian government recently started. Agriculture is not in the science in high school, for example. But Indian government, they started a few years ago. Agriculture should learn in the high school level, starting, for example, because that's very important. So like that, if you come out like that, yes, that may be useful for children.
So that was my first question on careers and career path. So what can you do for careers and encouraging people, young children to come? Well, at the Careers Hub, we've got some enterprise coordinators who come into businesses and engage with schools and teach, encourage people into different careers. If you would like to be an enterprise advisor with the Careers Hub, I would urge you to do that, to save agriculture and to promote agri-food. Please do get in touch with the lab on that, and we can put you in touch with some of our advisors who can put together programs, have you working with schools, have you working with young people and encouraging them into the industry. Thank you very much.
Any further questions? No, I think we can conclude. So yeah, thank you very much everyone for attending. Thank you to the online community. Thank you, Niall, and Tony. Got this survey papers. If you could spare maybe 5-10 minutes now, I think we would really appreciate your. There is also option to do it online, but we could paper sometimes. Yeah, the papers are on the front.
Do you want, yeah, you can pass them around, please. It won't get done.
So the fact that-
Let's try and get